Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another video. The matches come thick and fast at the moment. The treble winners are back in action as well on Saturday. Tomorrow, actually, against Newcastle United in what's going to be an early season kind of banger, really. It's going to be a massive game of football. It's going to be a fascinating game of football. And I thought today would be a good chance to get this gentleman alongside me on the channel to have a chat about all things Newcastle United and all things Toon. Alex Hurst, welcome, mate. How you doing? You good?
I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having me on, and really excited to talk about this game because it's just so exciting. Can't wait.
Are you nervous? Are you excited? Or are you actually nervous? You know, where's your head at? Like, because it's early season and City aren't the best starters, so I'm a little bit like, I could have done this in about a month or so. You know what I mean?
No, excited. I'm going to the game. 8 o'clock kick-off time's not ideal, to be honest. I know Pep's not happy, but I reckon he'll be in bed before me. Um, it's Newcastle started so well last week. They were so good. It's just a real opportunity to test ourselves. I think it's good that it's come early in the season, like you've just said, for the reasons you've just said. You've had a game in midweek, though. You are used to that as a club and as a side. And I think a lot of Newcastle fans are kind of wondering how close we can push the top two this season. And this game will be a really good indicator.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair summation there. I mean, Newcastle, there's a lot of expectation. I mean, not massive, but expectation brought on by themselves, really, with the quality of last season. Of course, you made the Champions League. Eddie Howe did a remarkable job. I mean, I mean this with the greatest respect. There wasn't a Champions League qualifying squad, in my personal opinion, at the time. It didn't look like it was going to be, and it was obviously you signed some good players, but largely victory down to good coaching, and just structure and organisation and all those cliched words, but sort of genuinely true. And of course, you're in the Champions League now. You've made some really smart signings. I mean, I'll just quickly check through the signings, just in case people watching this aren't familiar. You signed Sandro Tonali, superstar signing from AC Milan. Harvey Barnes, a sensible, but not cheap, but still, we did similar with Ake, someone who's got relegated, but obviously quality. Tino Livramento, really exciting. I don't know much about Minty, or whatever he's called. that's a fun name. But I think are you close to signing Lewis Hall as well? Is that right? Or yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
so you've signed. It seems to be really smart recruitment. I mean, they look like they're filling potential gaps and building well. Whereas you look at Chelsea on the other side, are just buying players left, right, and centre. Sorry, that's my phone dropped. Has the expectation for you personally changed, given that you finished fourth, and given that you've signed some good players, and of course, given that you started the season so well with that first game? What's the mood amongst the fan base? What is the expectation this season?
Yes, it's a jubilant mood amongst the fan base. Newcastle were written off last season a lot, even right up until March. Really, mainstream pundits kept saying there's no way they'll make the top four.
Yeah.
Liverpool will catch them. Liverpool are great, um, and they proved everyone wrong. And we've kind of had the same this season, where Neville and Carragher both have us finishing outside the top six. There's this kind of expectation that the Champions League will make us much worse. Like for most clubs, qualifying for the Champions League is a good thing. It's being treated as this kind of poison chalice for Newcastle. Well, I do appreciate there are more games, higher caliber of opposition to face, but it doesn't mean that we'll finish eighth. Like Jamie Carragher was saying, I mean, Spurs finished eighth last season and were rubbish, and we're much better than them. So I think fans are kind of just really hoping for Champions League qualification again. That's fifth place likely this season, so
It's
there
wild,
is a
that, isn't
little
it?
bit of room. Yeah, that's a little bit of room for maybe getting a little bit worse. But my own expectations, I thought would be closer to City and Arsenal than we were last season. We were second on Boxing Day, and then the Carling Cup final kind of derailed us a little bit. And Eddie Howe has admitted that the whole football club just kind of got consumed by it. But I think if Newcastle could breach 80 points this season, that was what I was hoping to do. I've seen nothing to discourage me from the opening day. That's not enough to win the league. It's probably not enough to be even be in a serious title race at the end of the season, but it is enough to make sure that you're not having a sweat about Champions League qualification. I think the signings that they've made will push us onto that.
Yeah, I mean, 80 points is. You think where you were a couple of years ago, 80 points is really good. It's a hell of a target, and it's not far off. Title winning form. City got 89 last season to win the league. Arsenal 84, and the general consensus is they had a remarkable season. So if you're getting around 80 points, you're doing really well at that point, and it's just it's a hell of a rise, and it's one of those things where as I said, you've signed some really good players. The start to the season, that Aston Villa game. I mean, what was the story of that game for you? Was it like, I didn't catch all the game? I've seen the highlights because obviously it's caught a match a day and so on. Deserved score, flattering, fair. Should have been more. What was the story of the game for you?
No, it definitely could have been more. I mean, Martinez has probably pulled out 3 saves that if any of those had gone in, no one would be looking at the goalkeeper. He's actually had quite a good game despite conceding 5. It was a weird game because Newcastle started like a house on fire, then Villa came back into it for 20 minutes or so, and loads of people seem to have concentrated on that 20 minutes for Villa. But the game lasts 90 minutes. Yeah. You can't be kind of rubbish for 70 minutes, lose 5-1, and say, we're in the game at 1-1, and they were in the game at 1-1, but. I think the most encouraging thing was just the fact that Villa could not cope. Villa, out of every team we played last season, probably give us the biggest beating when we played them 3-0 at their place. And we only lost four league games, 4 or 5, the same as Man City last season. And Villa was the only game really that we got outplayed in. So it was a really good test for us to see like how much the players and the team had learned from that one. And Villa just, all of the kind of usual cliches that we say about an Eddie Howe side, particularly at home, would take to Villa. They couldn't get out of their own half for long periods. They couldn't get through Newcastle's press. They tried to play it short. They tried to play it long.
Yeah.
They couldn't. And ultimately, there was a huge gulf in quality between the sides in the second half. And that bodes really well because I think Villa will still be a kind of top 8, top 7 side this season. They've got a good manager and they've got some good players. So it wasn't as much the scoreline, though that was great, but it was the gulf in class between the two teams. It was the fact that Emery tried to make, I think he changed the formation 3 times. He made a sub at half time, a tactical sub at half time. He brought on defenders when they were 3-1 down, all to try and stop Newcastle, and he still couldn't manage it. So that was the most pleasing thing for me, is when other Premier League managers just don't have an answer to what we're doing, and it was great to start doing it that way.
What do you put that performance down to? Obviously, like I mean, what are the particular strengths of this team? I'm doing it from the perspective of, say, City fans watching this haven't watched Newcastle a lot recently. I mean, what's Newcastle's biggest strength at the moment? When you look at the team and feel that's what's kind of getting us through games, or is there any particular quality that's standing out about this Eddie Howe side?
I think the midfield is up there. People are talking about it being one of the best in the league. No, Sean Longstaff, local lad, did great for Newcastle last season. Did really well. But it was clear that, for instance, when we play teams like Aston Villa or teams in the top 6, when they look at Newcastle's lineup, if they looked at a player that they think, well, I'd have him, we might have him, he might get on our bench, I think it's fair to say Sean Longstaff doesn't get into that conversation for any of those teams. So Newcastle going out and buying Sandro Tonali in that position is the first signing. And you always know with Eddie Howe, his first signing is the most important because he's the one he gets in earliest. He has a pre-season. They've gone out and got Tonali, and it just transcends that midfield into 3 players who can do everything. Bruno Guimaraes can play as 6, can play in front of the back 4, gets his foot in, can win possession, can turn over, can spray it. Joe Linton, the same, box to box, but can do the 6th position as well. Tonali, they've just brought in another complete midfielder who is, I mean, he got a goal. He should have had 2 goals on Saturday. He was man of the match by some distance. And, there were a lot of pundit talk about him. Will he be able to adapt to the pace of the Premier League? Eddie Howe has tracked him for a year. They don't sign players who can't hit the ground running. Yeah. And I think that midfield will really cause a lot of Premier League sides problems this season. The front 3 are full of pace. There's a lot of competition in our front 3. We've got 2 front 3s we can play, which is really privileged position to be in terms of, like, you could pick any of those 6 players and fans wouldn't mind at the weekend. But that midfield 3, and Joe Willock is injured and could push those lads potentially for a starting spot. But the midfield 3, if the midfield 3 play well, Newcastle are going to score goals every single fixture. That's the positive thing about it.
So what that forward line, of course, Isak, is he a starter now, Isak, by the way, or is it going to be Callum Wilson? Because I need to know from FPL, mate. Like,
it's Isak, yeah, it's Isak, definitely.
Isak, yeah. I mean, like, he's just, I nearly had him, because Twitter told me to swap him out for Watkins. I was like, I just trust him. I got instincts, and I did it last minute, and then it was a bad idea. I was like, he's on pens, Watkins, though, but then I was looking at the points, and I was like, well, but he's got 100 points from January onwards, and he was, and I was like, I should have just, you should just stick with your gut, but I didn't. But either way, I mean, what would you say your current, if you were Eddie Howe right now, congratulations, you're a millionaire immediately, so well done. If you were to pick your forward line, what would it be? Because I'm looking at the other day, obviously it was Gordon, Isak, and Almiron. But off the bench, of course, you've got Harvey Barnes, Callum Wilson. You've got quality there as well. What would you expect to see?
Well, I expect to see the same as last week because they did so well. Personally, I would play. I mean, I love Almiron and he's been great and he was a really good game last week. But I'd play Gordon on the right to bring Barnes in on the left, which I think is what eventually it'll end up as a first choice. Because Gordon, even though Eddie Howe enjoys his kind of inverted wingers, wrong-footed wingers on the wrong side, Gordon is a little bit two-footed and can play on the right. So I think Gordon and Barnes in the same side is incredibly exciting. But this weekend he'll go with what he went with against Villa. It'll be the same team. There's no injuries. It'll be the same 11.
In terms of, obviously we talked about strengths, so it's hard to do this turn the looking glass towards your own team. But are there any particular weaknesses that still stand out for you in this Newcastle side? Areas that you'd like to see improved?
Well, we've touched on it already, haven't we? We're about to pay 30 up to 38 million pounds for an 18-year-old left back.
He's good though, mate. He's good, isn't he? He was really good against us. Really good. I want him at City. I really do. I think he's quality.
Yeah. So Dan Burn is Dan Burn is brilliant. Again, local lad, done signed for 12 million quid. What a bargain! Signed as a centre back, but then becomes a left back in the joint best defence in the Premier League last season, alongside Manchester City. So it's not like Dan Burn is a problem, but that is the area that a lot of Newcastle fans want to upgrade, and then they see Burn more as a centre back. And if you remember the game at your place last season, Phil Foden for the first 15 minutes of that game just kills Burn, and then the goal is it's a bit unlucky because it takes a huge deflection off Sven Botman, but ultimately Foden just goes back past Burn like 3 or 4 times. Burn ends up getting booked. That not only Newcastle fans will say that's the issue, because whilst Burn is brilliant aerially and defensively a lot of the time, he's not good at one-on-one. Saka had his life last season as well, and he doesn't give you much going forward. So like Newcastle in possession tend to play a back three. They do play 4 at the back, but because Burn is kind of no good at supporting the forward players, Joe Linton essentially has to do all of the attacking as a fullback and play central midfield. So that left back position is definitely one that Newcastle fans think is a weakness. Yeah,
I think Lewis Hall, I don't think he'll give you much defensively, but going forward, he looks absolutely electric, doesn't he? So if you're not getting much on a one-on-one from Burn or attacking, at least Hall's going to just be electric going forward. So there's always that. I mean, when you look at that team, like, it's just strong. It seems such a simple way to describe the Newcastle side, but physically impressive, isn't it? Just steely, and it seems to be. It's just, I don't know if it's an oversimplification, but it just seems to be a football style and physical style that just suits St James's, because obviously it's such an electric atmosphere up there, and it must be like easy to get behind as fans at the moment because the football's good, but it's also physical, and I presume there's an element of that. You enjoying that a bit? Is that an oversimplification, or is that fair?
No, that's very fair. You don't actually hear that point you've just made talks about kind of mainstream media, but I think it's a great point that Eddie Howe is a flexible coach. He didn't play like this at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
I think he builds sides to suit both the resources that he's got, but also the environment in which they play. And Newcastle pick up a lot of bookings this season. They picked up 4 last week. It could have been more. They're a physical.
In that game, wasn't they?
They're a physical side that really try and impose on the opposition, and that's because, like you say, the kind of high intensity, high pressing, lots of running style is what they want to see at St James's Park. Fans want to see. We don't want the other team to have the ball. If the other team have got the ball, we need to try and get back off them, particularly if it's at their end of the pitch. So, going to be really interesting to see actually how far we kind of push that at Manchester City, because we did press high at Manchester City last season, even at kind of 1-0 down, and that obviously will create opportunities for Manchester City to exploit. So it's really interesting to see whether he just goes all out again, like he did on Saturday, in terms of pressing high up the pitch. But it's definitely something fans love to see at home.
Yeah, and I think it's really obvious, and I think it's smart from Eddie Howe because it's just a passionate fan base. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows the reputation about St James's Park, and if I was a manager, I'd be doing everything I can to feed into that atmosphere because it's an asset. It's a huge asset, and it works for the club clearly. And like that Newcastle side, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say like City fans are apprehensive about this game. Not all, because obviously we're treble winners and we shouldn't be stupid. But we're looking at a side right now that's early on, and we're still trying to find our feet. But it's a side without Kevin De Bruyne. There's some rumours Stones might not be available. Gundogan and Mahrez have moved on. We haven't made the signings yet, probably fully to replace some of these players. it's obviously still going to be a really high quality City side because we're blessed with great players. But it ain't a ready City side. It isn't. It's not even close to ready. And I remember last year early on, it was like a 3-3, wasn't it? It was at the start of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar where it's just a bit gung ho and teams are going at each other. Are you expecting Newcastle to sort of play the same system? Do you think there'll be any compromises or tweaks from Eddie Howe away at the Etihad? Because obviously it's a different kettle of fish. Obviously playing away than it is at home.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing for me is what we do at the start of the game. So vintage Eddie Howe side is minute 1 to minute 90, no steps back, and even if we don't monopolise possession like we would do at home, against Man City, it's still kind of positive outlook. I just wonder whether the lesson of last season's game, which wasn't, that was March, where City ended up winning pretty comfortably 2-0 in the end, but it was much closer game than that,
Yeah,
and particularly at kind of 1-0 to City, Newcastle with a better side. I just wonder whether he starts a little bit more cautiously, because we give ourselves such a, if you go 1-0 down away to Manchester City, what are the odds of coming back to win the game? And I think I believe him when he says that he plans to win this game. We're coming here to win. Yeah. He's not coming here thinking the points are good result. That's just the type of man he is. He's not, he's not a Bournemouth anymore. He does recognise the assets that he has at his disposal, should be able to come to Manchester City and at least not expect to win for the reasons you correctly outlined, but think if we play well today, we have a great chance of winning. So I think he might just go for it. That's the thing. I think he might just go for it. Like you say, Man City's early season form can sometimes be patchy. You've done big fixture in midweek with penalties and emotion and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of Newcastle fans say, if there's ever a time to go to Manchester City and get a win, it's now. Doesn't mean it'll happen. Doesn't mean Newcastle fans expect to win. But just in terms of our circumstances and your circumstances, and apart from Joe Willock, we've got a fully fit squad to choose from. It doesn't happen often in the season, does it? Once you get into games and Champions Leagues, and like you said, you guys don't have a fully fit squad. You've got key players missing potentially, particularly in De Bruyne. So it's just really exciting. Even if I was a City fan, I just think it's just an exciting fixture.
It really is, man. I mean, there's a super chat just from Pift, by the way. Thank you very much, mate. So our midfield feels very stiff. Without KDB, it's a pain to break through defences. It's funny because we do have the depth, but it feels like we don't. And that's the thing. I mean, that comment there sort of sums it up a little bit. It does right this second feel stiff because it's. I don't think Guardiola's planning to not have Kevin De Bruyne, and of course Kovacic is still adapting. Gundogan, that once again that intricacy's gone. So we're sort of building a new midfield at the moment. Obviously, the links to Paqueta are really well known at this point. We're probably going to sign him for West Ham, and look at City's midfield. It's going to be it'll be Kovacic, Rodri. I mean, still very good, but then one of Foden or probably Bernardo, something like that. But they're still working on the rhythms, so it's going to be difficult, I reckon, to break down an organised physical defence, which sounds pretty much from what we've been talking about Newcastle. So City fans right now are a little bit like, this could be a bit of a battle. It could be difficult. I do think it's going to be a cracking game of football. I'm not happy about the 8 p.m, by the way. You must be gutted about that. Are you getting back? Are you driving or what?
Just driving, yeah, driving.
It's stupid, isn't it, man? It's stupid. I don't want 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. Personally, I just can't be bothered. It's just late, isn't it? It's just too late. But either way, I think it's going to be a great game of football. I always like to think, what's your head saying and what's your heart saying in terms of the result tomorrow? Like, where are you out of it? Or is it saying the same thing? I don't know. It could be.
No, my head's saying it could be what you said earlier. I think it could be something mad, like between 2-2 and 4-4 or 4-3 either way. My heart's saying just I've been to this stadium like 8 or 9 times now and hardly seen us score a goal. And it's just like, in terms of like the universe and just being maybe we win 2-1 and it's like a dodgy ref decision or something, but just that's the way like it should be after so many years and miles travelled of not seeing anything. So my head says a high score and draw. My heart says maybe Newcastle sneaking it by a goal.
I think you're going to score though. I actually do. I think you're going to get a goal. It just feels. I don't know. It feels like it's the time to get a goal. It's going to be a cracking game of football either way. Alex, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been a good chat. Guys, of course, if you haven't already, click the link in the description. Check out True Faith, Newcastle podcast, of course. Alex is over there doing loads of great content. And I mean it well. It's nice to... Do you feel the same, by the way? It's like, well, City fans definitely feel an element of like, it's nice to see someone else challenging, or Because to be honest, if you replace Chelsea or you know push United out, I'd be buzzing. You know, like, I just don't really care like massively. Have you got a sense of that? Have you noticed anything from other like rival fans, so to speak, yet?
Yeah, the weird thing is that there's so much negativity about Newcastle in the media because of the ownership, but it doesn't really come from other fans. Like it's, Villa fans were really complimentary about the atmosphere and about how well Newcastle played on Saturday. That on social media and on YouTube, like Villa fans were saying that what, fair enough, we just got smashed by a good team. It happens. We don't have to have a meltdown about it. So I do think that a lot of Premier League fans, throw Villa in there as well, would love to see a couple of those teams kicked out of the top six. And, we kind of saw with Liverpool last season, crying about them not being in the Champions League, like how, like, seriously some pundits and some
Yeah.
fans take it. So, yeah, I mean, I hope we're here to stay.
I think you are, to be honest. I think the signings you're making are smart, and so much of football these days is down to good recruitment, and talent, identity, and all that kind of stuff. And Newcastle are good at it. They seem very good at it. Like, and that's what City have got it right. Obviously with Guardiola, which really helps, but we've got it right. And I think Newcastle, we look at all the signings you make, they're just improving the 11, and that's very, very rare. And that sounds really weird, but people just get it wrong all the time. So you're going to do well this season, and I can't wait to see when's the next game after that. Anyway, when are we back at when are we back at St James's Park? I can't remember. Let's have a look. Scroll the fixtures. January, that 13th of January, mate. So I think we'll know an awful lot more about how the season's panning out by then. So hopefully I'll chat to you about then if that's all right with you.
Look forward to it.
Mate, thank you very much for coming on. Go check out Alex's channel, of course, and the podcast, the True Faith Newcastle podcast as well, if you want to. It'll be linked in the description below. Guys, thanks for watching. Of course, City play Newcastle tomorrow. We'll do my match preview as well later on today. I'll do it live, and of course the watch longs and all the usual stuff. Watch the videos from yesterday, 5 things under and all that, and I'll catch you all very soon. Alex, thank you very much for coming on, mate. You're an absolute superstar. In a bit, guys. Bye-bye.